welcome. It's nice to have you here on a Friday morning. So usually we get some of the same mamas that we have every time, and then a few new ones that haven't been here before. So welcome to everybody. And thank you, Lindsay Watkins, for helping me, letting people in and all of that good stuff. So we appreciate that. Okay. On Friday mornings, we come and share something that has to do with this month's rotation or the Mother's University, Mother's Learning Library, or something that you are doing to help warm your heart. Things that you find successful in that endeavor, things that are working for you. So we would love to have anybody that wants to share. This is a place to come together with other women and be supported and encouraged and all those good things. So, oh, Lindsay, thank you. That's a good reminder. You mamas, did you see what she put in the chat there about how, and I just put the chat behind my camera. If you have a fourth grader, then you can jump onto this site and get a free national park pass. I missed that. I missed that.
It's so nice too, because it's free for the whole year, and it will get you usually that one pass in your car, and it will let in every kid in under 16 for free and up to 3 adults. I mean, those park passes can get pricey if you have a lot of kids, so utilize it. And it's fourth grader up to 10 years. They have to be like 10 years old. So my 10-year-old he would be in like public school 5th grade, but because he's 10, he still qualifies. So
nice. Oh, that's so great. That really is a huge thing, especially if you travel a bit, or you have family in different places, things like that. Or if you just are fortunate enough to live somewhere where there are a few national parks around you. Even one would make it worth it. We have Sequoia National Park and Forest just 2 hours away. And so that was just a lovely place to go. Well, welcome. Remember, if you can come on screen with your camera, do so, because we love to see your faces. We love to get to know people. That is a wonderful thing. Also, if you can't, we understand, because there can be stuff going on in the background and it just doesn't work for you. So we're happy to have you here. So did anyone come with something that they're just dying to share, that they want to share or mention or talk about with the other ladies that are here this morning? Oh, nice. We're getting a lot of lovely ladies here. It's so nice. Okay. Has anybody started? It's September 1st, which I honestly really am having a hard time wrapping my head around. But has anybody started their studies for this month of September in the Mother's University? I love this book. I love A Mother's Influence. This one in the Mother's Learning Library, and so many of the resources that are there for us as mamas. There's so many. There are books for you to read and movies to watch, little videos to watch, and podcasts to listen to. I listened to one as I was falling asleep last night, and it was just lovely. It was Marlene talking about her mother, and I think it's just called A Mother of Influence. If you haven't listened to that one, I encourage that. It is in the Mother's University for the month of September. So, okay. Mercedes, I was very interested in your post. I loved that story that you wrote for your children. I think there are several of us here who would love to know how that went as you told the story to your children.
Well, I'm a much better writer than I am a storyteller, which isn't saying much. But it was super cute. I had told my
back up probably for people who don't know, maybe tell I didn't ask you to do that, sorry.
So, and someone actually asked me on my post yesterday a good question as well, how I found Perrin the Dollar Horse.
Right.
Which is a picture book about dollar horses. And last year was the first year I did the rotation, and the children that I homeschool are very young. I have a little girl that turns 5 on Halloween Day, and then I have a little girl that turns 3 in like a couple of weeks. So they're very young. So last year I saw all these cute dollar horses on all the enrichment pages, and I thought, but how do I, like, she doesn't know what that means, how do I make the connection? And so I went looking for a picture book, and there weren't any on, the old website book lists, and there weren't any on Biblioguide. So I just went to Google and was just like, are there any picture books about that? There has to be a reason this came about. And I found Perrin the Dollar Horse, and I never read it last year. So this year we got it out and read it. And well, we didn't get it out. We had to hop on Internet Archive and borrow it from there. And then another little bit of backstory. I have just felt recently like I need to be storytelling more. It's like it's so different to tell a story to a child than to read a story to a child. And I love reading stories because I can read really well, and I can have really good inflection, and I can read for ages. But telling a story, it's like my brain just shuts down. And so I know that that's something that I need to be working on. And I have felt like that was something that I needed to be working on. And so we watched a bunch of YouTube videos. We read the book on Internet Archive. I watched a bunch of videos with the girls about how they paint them by hand in Sweden, and they're really fun. And then I thought, why are these the national symbol of Sweden? Because the book doesn't address that at all. It's just a beautiful story about a dollar horse. And so I just like hopped on Google again and was just like, history of dollar horses. And it's like, they kind of don't really know why. They're just like something that happened. And then I found one website. I found a couple because I digged for a while. But I found a website that it literally was, just maybe a 4-line paragraph on a website that talked about a soldier came to stay in this village of Dalarna, which is why they're called Dollar Horses, Dalarna. And he sat down and carved one of these little horses and then gave it to a little boy who was watching. Like, that's all it said. That's just all it said. Well, and then it said that the mother gave the soldier a bowl of soup for the kindness. And that was it. And I was like, okay, I can make that better. I can make that more interesting. I mean, I think I can. So I just sat down during nap time and I wrote a story. I fleshed it out and made it more interesting. I mean, I could just see in my mind a little boy like so interested in this stranger who's staying at his house, but also kind of shy because he's not his dad. And so just this man is there, and how he would be so interested, because little boys are just curious, just watching what he's doing, and how he'd kind of get closer and closer to kind of see what he's doing. And that he'd end up right by him, and that all along the soldier was going to give the gift to the little boy. Anyway, so I wrote a story, and then I told it to my girls last night, and my little almost 3-year-old is a firecracker. The child doesn't know what it means to sit still. Like she doesn't walk, she like skips. Like she lives life aggressively is what I say. And she was like super still while I was telling the story. Like she just kind of stood there and like watched me. And so my almost 5 is laying in her bed, and my little one is right next to me, and I'm kneeling by the bed, and I'm just kind of telling them both this story. And I told it, so much worse than it was written down, but they were both just like, my 5-year-old kept getting these big eyes, like, and like super excited just about this little story that mom's telling them. And it went really well. It was really sweet. And I felt like I was doing something that Heavenly Father wanted me to do, which is a nice feeling to have because I don't always feel that way. So that's the long version of all of this.
Oh, I love it. And I loved reading about it, and I loved reading your story and then the comments afterwards. And I loved what you shared about why you had to do this. Could you talk about that just a little bit more? Just this idea that something creative just kind of
I have felt, so it's month 1, right? Or like starting month 1 today. I started Scandinavia a little while ago, but stars, like they're so interesting, right? And so I hop into the nature book, and I feel like my almost 5 does better right now with shorter stories, or at least stories that they can be a little bit longer, but many of the stories in the nature book of stars, it's like a whole book that goes, it like compounds, you know, it's the same characters throughout and the same things go. And so I feel like that's a little bit much for her to keep track of. Maybe not, maybe I'm underestimating her, but I felt like there's got to be like just some little short stories, just like the Legend of the Dipper, about stars or the sun. And that's why I asked that question on Facebook earlier in the week, because I have felt like I needed to find stories for my children and I'm not finding them. So then it occurred to me that, well, then I need to write them. And that's overwhelming. And so, you know, but it kind of just clicked yesterday. And so I have just, but I've really felt that urge to write something, to create something for my children, because I love the Legend of the Dipper. Like I just cried the first time I heard Marlene tell it on the podcast, on podcast 80. And then, you know, I went and searching for it and I found it, you know, in the written copy of Restoring the Art of Storytelling, which I have. And I just thought, I'm not the best writer in the world, but I am my mother's child, or rather, I am my children's mother. And that means that they're not going to know until they're much older and maybe read the same book or something that the story was maybe a little different, or like, you know, they're not going to know that the story mom told wasn't the best story it could have been. They're just going to love mom's telling them a story. And so I have just felt like I needed to tell stories. So I told her the other night, I told her the Legend of the Dipper. And then yesterday I was like, I have a new story for you at bedtime. And she's like, can we do 2 stories at bedtime? Because she wanted to hear the Dipper again. And I said, yes, let's do 2 stories. You know, let's make sure we plan enough time to make our bedtime a little longer. And so I don't know. It's weird because I feel so often that I'm not always getting promptings like I feel like other people get. And maybe that's probably my own misperception of life. And I'm learning to kind of grapple with the fact that because I try to do what's right as often as possible, that I'm constantly being guided, that it doesn't feel like, Mercedes, you need to do this very often. But this last couple of weeks, I have felt like I needed to do this. And so it was kind of an interesting difference because it was pretty specific. Like, you need to tell your daughter stories. You need to. And I remember what Marlene said about how the reason she has kind of backed off a little bit from encouraging storytelling is because we're also story deprived. You know, our culture is story deprived. And so that, how do you tell a story if you don't have all these interesting ideas that you've gotten from everybody else? And I thought, I don't want to be like that. And so, you know, all of these things just come together too. I felt like I needed to tell a story. And so, there was a need. I figured it would be fun to tell a story about the horses that she was so interested in today when we watched these videos. And so let's write it.
I love that. And I want to ask Haley to comment on that. Haley, do you have time? Because I feel like inside Haley has so much to add to all of that. But Mercedes, thank you. I love your reasons why and that motivation and all that. Go ahead, Haley. Sorry.
Lori, could you just tell I was like bursting or something?
Yeah.
Just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So I love the way you talked about that, Mercedes. And I feel like I've had a similar thing happening, you know, and I got to say, like, Well-Educated Heart just brings that out. I feel like it makes you want to create, and it gives you all these beautiful things that you can create with. And it's funny because I feel that way as well. Sometimes I think, oh, that person is like meant to do that. And I don't know if I'm meant to do these things that I'm doing or whatever, that I'm necessarily being directed to do them. But I feel like, so one of the things that I've really loved creating in the last little while, and I actually have been able to look back and see that I actually have loved it for most of my life, but I love writing poetry. And just in the last month or 2, I've been able to create more poetry. And it's funny because I have the same insecurities. I feel like, oh, you know, I'm not the best at this, or, you know, maybe somebody else could do it better or whatever. But I feel like as I've shared those poems with people, it's special because it's coming from me. It's special because I've taken that time to create it for them. And it's funny because a lot of the time I'll write poems and then, I won't do anything with them, but then I'll find them, a year or two later. And I actually love that poem more than when I wrote it. And it does bring back, like, it's not even that, sorry, I don't know how to explain this, but it's not even that it was necessarily a really profound poem or really amazing, but it brings me back to the feelings and what I was experiencing, and just it was the way that I expressed that, and it's just really cool to go back and see that. So
Thank you, Haley. And I could tell. I could tell just you got excited about what Mercedes was talking about. I love that. Okay, so mamas, any thoughts about that? Yeah, Nicole, can you share that? I love her book.
Yeah, it just made, when Haley was talking, it just made me think of that book, If You Want to Write. And yeah, if some of you have started reading it or just have bought it, kind of like me, I've read the first chapter, but I've loved it. And just, yeah, she says, everybody is talented, original, and it has something important to say. And we, like Haley was saying, we think maybe we don't have something important to say, but we do. And we just have to remember that.
Yeah, I loved that part of the book. And I thought, I wonder what mine is. I don't know if I know what mine is, but I love the idea of there is something there. I think that gives us a little bit of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of power or something, a little bit of more of an inspiration or motivation to find that thing.
Yeah, that book really inspired me because I read that first chapter, and that night I had all these dreams of like stories that I could start telling. And so I wrote them down. So I have all these like ideas that I wrote down. So interesting, like how we each receive inspiration differently and for different things. Maybe it's poetry or storytelling or whatever it is. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Or art or something. Just and in little ways, things that maybe you're not even really thinking about. That's just kind of a normal, natural thing for you, but maybe that's your way of expressing this creativity. And I love that idea that it just comes out of you. You just can't help it. And definitely the well-educated heart, this pattern of learning brings those things out. As you warm your heart, there are things like that that just you just can't help it. Anybody else have something to share? Responses to this or something completely on another topic? Doesn't matter. I don't want to leave anyone out that has something. Yeah, Mercedes.
No, just something that Nicole said made me think. I think that inspiration and being guided in those ways actually works like that. So she reads this book, she's feeling really inspired, and then she has dreams with ideas. I think that when we're on the right track to something good, it doesn't even have to be like my life track, but like just we're doing something that's good, that Heavenly Father guides us. He like kind of prods us along and like, oh, well, here's this and here's that. I have also for years felt prompted to write my own personal history. And when I'm really thinking about that, I remember stuff that I haven't remembered in years. Just randomly, it'll come into my head and I'm like, oh, I have to write that down. And if I'm in the habit of writing down the things that I'm remembering, more come to me. And so I think it's just it's a muscle, right? We have to exercise it. And as we do, we get more, like we're able to do it more and more, and we get more ideas and things come to us. And that muse, as they all call it, for the arts, is real. Like they're there if we're trying to do things.
I love that you shared that too, because I do think that. I think you have to invite that a little bit. Go ahead, Nicole.
I was just going to say, Mercedes mentioned the word habit, and that's, as we're talking about these things, and as I'm thinking about, our school year and stuff, I'm thinking about habits a lot and goals and like focus. I happen to be a person that I feel like struggles with focus. And maybe that's common in our world right now because things are so fast. And so I wouldn't mind hearing people's ideas on habits and focus. Like like that was kind of a cool experience for me to read that chapter and have those dreams and write it down. And now I'm like, okay, where did I write that down? And why didn't I follow that? You know, why didn't I continue that path? And when Mercedes was talking about like when you're in the path or something like that, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to the path. You know, how do I keep my focus? How do I, yeah, I kind of, you know, I kind of know some tips about goal setting and stuff like that and stuff, but it might be a good thing to hear some ideas on too. Anybody has some?
Even though we never do the exact same things that somebody else is doing, it sometimes helps flush out what would work for us. Because we could say, well, no, a little bit of that, maybe, and then we can kind of come up with our own, something that works for us. So yeah, that is a good idea. So if anyone has any ideas on that, and I know that this Bellam at Home or following the pattern of learning that Marlene has really so beautifully taught does help with that. It does help in forming habits of attention and doing these things like putting a little bit of art and music and storytelling and poetry, memorizing a poem, studying a piece of art and looking at it, and then maybe, you know, having a conversation with somebody about it, about the things you noticed or the things that you thought about because of that. Those are all things that help develop that habit of attention, and that carries over in lots of different areas of our lives. Now, don't be shy. I want to remind those who are here that have been here before, also those who haven't, that there are times when you just have this little thought about something that pops up into your head, and you think, oh, that's not important enough to share. That's just a little thing, or that's just for me. But very often those things pop into your head because it's something that it's a good thing to share, and there's somebody here that'll benefit from you sharing that thing. So don't hesitate. Yeah, Debbie, sorry I didn't see you unmuted.
Since you say that.
Good. Welcome.
When family stories, your personal family histories was brought up, I also have had some ideas on that, especially with the kids. Having them write down the experiences and stories that they're having now. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about going to the park, but for instance, a couple days ago, one of our cats escaped, and we don't let her out very often because I still have to get her fixed. So I'm really careful about that. But she took off and the kids freaked out because they couldn't find her. And they really freaked out. And I was like, you know what? This is where she lives. She's going to come back. Cats have amazing noses and direction, though. I wasn't worried in the slightest. But this was a big, big deal for our two youngest, especially. And so, you know, they had prayed and they were looking and they put in the effort. And then, you know, we had kind of calmed down the situation. And one of the kids said to another, you know, why don't you just open the door occasionally? And so it was kind of an offhand kind of a comment is probably what they thought, but it was inspired because they opened the door and she was sitting right there waiting to come in. So it's just a really good thing for them to write, for them to have a story written down that is theirs, that they experienced and that they could use to not only remind themselves of patience or faith or effort, you know, putting in the effort into something. And then it's something that they and we can recall that's effective and meaningful for them. And I know that we've had some other stories with some of the older kids we've never written down, but honestly, it would be a wonderful thing to write down because we vocalize it. It's one of those lore stories that just kind of keeps getting brought up. We're looking for a Redbox DVD. So but it has its own story. And so anyway, just having the kids write those down for themselves. So they have these stories of faith or these stories of how they got through hard times that are their own.
Yeah, I love that. I have this wonderful friend of mine that I met through in the earlier years of homeschooling my kids when they were all home and we were doing that. And just this wonderful Christian mama. And every year, this relates to me. It seems related to your comment, Debbie. But every year they would write down the things that their family was praying for, the things that they were praying for. and they actually put them up on the wall. So they would have these bigger things they were praying for, or people that they were praying for. And then they left those things up, and they kept them up, but then they would write on them, they would add to them when they felt like those prayers were being answered or they were seeing the Lord's hand in those situations. And then she kept those papers as sort of a family history of some of their family spiritual experiences together. And I thought that's such a lovely thing. Anytime that we keep any kind of record of those experiences that we're having in our own lives or that we're sharing with our family, and then for our children to recognize that and see that's important to write those things down. That's beautiful. Hi, Sienna.
Hi,
Did I
Lori.
say that right?
You did.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so I actually take the time now each day to write down my win or wins for the day. How often it's a this inside voice in the head that says, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it good enough, you're not doing anything. And so I thought, okay, but there's things. And so I just write them down every day. So I just wanted to share a couple of things. We were talking a little bit about Revelation earlier, and here's a little fun thing that happened, is that I have a son that is 2, and he just really, he's been struggling. I haven't been able to give him as much time, so he's been struggling. And so when it was bedtime, I had him, I took him up to his bed, and I had the thought, it just came. So I knew it was revelation, because, it's just, when it just comes, it's not really your own. And it was, he needs skin to skin time. So I just took my shirt off and I just laid him in the bed with him. I put him on my chest and I just sang and I just rubbed his back. And he does not like to sit still, but he did. He laid there and he let me just rub his back and sing to him. And I just wanted to share this little tender mercy that I got to go in my little notebook of, this is something that I did good today.
Good for you. And you stopped for a moment, because so many times we think, oh, I don't have time for that. I've got to get this other thing done. I've got to move on to this. But that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's really sweet. It's so good when we respond to those things, just those little feelings that we're having. Jessica, hi.
Okay, 2 things. So when we were talking about the story part, the idea that Marlene's daughter had what's it called? The backward scheduling, that you write down what you did instead of scheduling stuff out.
Unplanner.
Unplanner, yes, that. So I made that last year or the year before, whenever she shared it. And that's been a really great way for my kids to get excited to share what they've done every day. So with their school money, we bought one of those things that can print off pictures. So we'll print off pictures of stuff they've done or artwork. And so they're telling their story on that blank paper that Marlene has of what they did. So they really get excited about telling their day-to-day life in that Unplanner. And then the next thing, when you said, when you wrote the small and simple ways that mothers can influence their homes and families for good, that reminded me of how we have these big plans and all these beautiful desires that we want to be and do, but we can't do it all at the same time. So just being in the present moment. And so if we're doing baking right now, we're going to be a really good baker, but probably not a good housekeeper. We're probably going to have a messy house because we're putting our time into baking. Or if we're going to be a really good housekeeper, maybe we're not going to be very good at another thing. So just knowing that we can't be all the things all the time, but we can be really good at what we're doing at the moment. So just being present in the moment has been very helpful and beautiful for me. And then it allows me to be the best of whatever I'm at doing that moment. I can be the best of that at that moment.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that thought. and the thoughts, multiple things, multiple ideas. I love the idea of the unplanner. I love the idea of going back and putting down the things that you did. That I've been doing ever since I heard of that idea, because I feel so much more successful than with my list of 20 things that I'm never going to get done. Because how reasonable is it to make a list of 20 things to do in the day when you know you get 2 or 3 done? But to be able to look back and say, look, I did these things. And when you reflect back, especially when you're being present in the moment, and especially when you're being inspired and you follow that inspiration, you've done the things that actually mattered. And so there was some type of better response, maybe not ideal, maybe not perfectly what you would have thought. But if you're using eyes to see, and hearts to feel, you can see that those are good things that made a difference. Also, I love, Lindsay, that you brought that up again. Did you see in the comments, mamas, Lindsay's, can you share that? I mean, it's just a thought, but expound on that just a little bit. I love that. I love that.
I like calling it my ta-da list. Ta-da, look what I did today, instead of my to-do list, because my little sister sent me a thing and she's like, oh, I love crossing things off my to-do list. Not because I did them, just because I don't want them there anymore. And it's like, I was like, oh, I'm going to cross everything off then. It's just being present. I love what you said about that. It's just, I'm going to be the best baker right now. I don't need to be everything. And I heard this, I'm trying to remember where I heard it, where they said the Lord only lives in the present. He doesn't live in the past and he doesn't live in the future. So when you're in the present, you're in the same time zone. So that's when your inspiration is going to come. And I love that. And going back to the family history thing, I've actually loved digging into family history to figure out where we're from. And then I like to tie it into the rotations, because then it gives me that personal connection. So when we went digging into the Scandinavian, I'm Danish, only 4 generations back. And so that was fun for me to tie that in. Oh, and Mercedes. Look what I picked up last year. I found it at a little Swedish import store in Maine, and it just spoke to my heart, because I had that connection with the rotation and I had been just digging in, and it just sticks with you and certain things just stand out to you. So I love that. And then the journaling about it, Debbie, you've talked about that. I love that, because as you're doing the family history and you're digging because you want to find out about those family members, that's what we're looking for, is their journals. So if we're not journaling our own, then we're not leaving our posterity anything to look up for us and to tie us to be their connection to maybe their rotation when they start doing it. So that's kind of where my heart is. But yes, I love the ta-da list. It's just feel accomplished at the end of the day. And maybe all you were today was a baker, and that's perfectly fine, because that's exactly where you needed to be.
Awesome. Thank you. I loved all those thoughts. But isn't that such a fun thing to have it be a ta-da list instead of to do? That just sounds so much more fun. I think there are ways that we can make our everydays fun for us. And there's nothing wrong with something being fun. I think I started off thinking, well, that's not responsible. Well, that's not, I don't know, something grown up. But it is so much more fun to find the joy in the things. And there's a lot of joy in the everyday stuff. We just have to find it. Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Grown up and responsible is overrated, is what Lindsay said. Oh, okay. Other thoughts, mamas? Things that are just kind of percolating there and that you're thinking, because I know it happens most of the time. Oh, that's not important enough. Not significant. That might be dumb. Maybe I probably shouldn't say that. Those are the things we need to hear. And you know what happens? People stick around till the very end. I pause the recording. We just start chatting. And then these incredible things come out and they'll just say, well, I just didn't think it was important enough to share. And I think, oh, that would have been amazing. We should have talked about that. So don't hesitate. And it doesn't matter if it's a teeny tiny little thing. And if you just get a quiet after that, because that might be one of the most significant things that was said. And everyone, or even just some of the mamas, are just thinking about it and thinking, oh, that's the answer. That's the thing I've been looking for. And so they can't even respond to that. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Lindsay. All right, where's Connie? Did you guys see that in the comments? Lindsay just called Connie out. She's in Denmark right now. Oh my goodness. Connie, are you able to share? Are you not in a place where you can? You can tell, look at her. She's being a good sport. She wasn't. She's walking. She's going to somewhere that might be a little bit more conducive. Thank you.
I might be able to hear you if I back up a little bit because there's stuff going on in the background. So yes, we've been planning this vacation for over 3 years. And so, and I'm here while we're learning about Scandinavia. Is
You might have walked just a tiny bit too far away from where your internet is.
Oh, can you not hear me anymore?
Now I can. Now I can.
Maybe I should stop walking. Yes, it's beautiful here, and it's a dream come true to be here. The playgrounds are absolutely amazing. That's been one thing that I've loved. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes. I'm listening. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Oh, well, I wasn't really like prompted to say anything, and I didn't want it to come. Yeah. Anyway, it's
no,
beautiful.
I know, but look at this. This is you're not saying, "Ooh, look at me. I'm in Denmark right now." We're saying, "Connie, what? You're in Denmark? Please share with us. We want to know more."
Well, my son turns 18, and so he wanted to see England because that's where most of my family's from. And my husband's family is all Scandinavian. And so tickets to Denmark were a lot cheaper than flying into London. So his birthday was just a couple days ago. So we're hitting both places and seeing both sides of our family heritage. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's really neat to see how it still feels like home, like out in nature. It still feels like home. I think going into grocery stores and going into places where everybody's speaking different languages, you're like, oh yeah, I'm not home. But it's been really neat. We drove past we went from Copenhagen over to Billund, and then we were listening to the inspiration station where it was talking about where Hans Christian Andersen lived. And we're like, we drove right past that. So when we drive back again, I want to go see if we can stop if we have time. That's the plan. But so many fun things that we're learning while watching. And I mean, I'd like to do more, but we are on vacation. So I'm sure there's going to be things when we get home and read a little more in depth. I'll be like, oh, we should have went and did that. But for now, we're getting the connection and seeing places. And when she talked in the inspiration station about how everyone's so friendly, it's like, yes, I can see it. So it's fun. If you have questions, I'll try to answer. I didn't feel like I had too much to share, but yeah, it's beautiful here. If you can see it, it's 6:40 at night, so the sun's going down.
Connie, you are so sweet to do this. Oh, I so appreciate you doing that. And ladies, so Connie, are you in Mothers of Influence community, Bellum at Home? Where are you?
I'm both.
Okay.
I hadn't done too much with the Mothers of Influence because I was still I was overwhelmed with everything I was trying to get done.
Sure.
And so
Well, we're going to be helping you so much. So many things are changing in there. So make sure you get in there. And so ladies, maybe we could also message Connie there too, if that's okay with you.
Sure. That'd be
We-
great.
We would love to have you share the things that you're learning and seeing there in the Mothers of Influence community, if that, when you have time, when you're back home, whatever, but
That would be awesome.
yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Jeanette and then we're going to open up. So if anybody has follow-up questions for Connie, thank you. Jeanette, go ahead.
Okay, well, I feel bad interrupting Connie's beautiful Denmark. I was just going to share, can you all hear me?
Yes, it's a little bit fuzzy.
Okay, let me just turn
Off then. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now if I take out
Yes.
my earbud? Okay.
Yes.
All right. It's a little bit windy here, so hopefully you can hear me. But I've never been on this before, so I really have no idea what I'm doing. But you said we could share something that might help some. And just want to share things that two of my good friends shared with me that have helped me as a mom. And one said that every day just to write down 3 things that you are thankful for, 1 thing that you have done to serve someone else, and 1 thing that you've done for yourself. And for me, that was the hardest one. I can always think of a lot of things I'm thankful for. And I always do, I think as moms, we're often serving other people, but that helped me to really think about it as service. But then the one thing for myself, I've loved that because I have taken time to just read like a chapter in just a book that I'm reading that I love, that's just for me, and I don't feel guilty for it. I just know that I love it. So that's one of the things I wanted to share. Another one, somebody made a comment on here that reminded me, I had another friend who told me that somebody said on here that they had thoughts like, you're not good enough and all of that. And she said, when you have a thought that like, you haven't done enough today or whatever, any negative thought, she said to like in the back of a notebook somewhere, to write down that negative thought, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but she said to write it down. And then underneath that to write, I am enough. And so I've been doing that now for about a year. And my negative thoughts are less and less. But at the beginning, man, it just seems like I would just write it down and it just gets it out of the way. And then I don't go study that negative thought. I just get it out. But then the I am enough, I write bigger or I write it fancy. And so when I go back to look at that notebook in the back, I open it and what you see is some, cursive that's smaller, my negative thought. And then you see, I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. And it has just really, really helped. And it's been something I've been able to share with my children. So that when they're getting down or discouraged, that they can go read that and remember you are enough. So anyway, those are just a couple things that some good friends of mine have shared that are simple and that I've been able to incorporate into my life.
Ah, I love that. I love it. And when you said go write it down, I didn't think that was weird because I have had experiences with my negative thoughts where I was prompted to go write them down. And as soon as I wrote them down, I could see as soon as I got it out of me, I could see, well, that's not true. That's it. But in my head, I could make it grow and, and it would just flourish in there. But if I said it out loud or I wrote it down, I could see that it wasn't true. So that makes sense. I love that. I love that. And I love the 3 things you're grateful for, something you've done for somebody else and something you've done for yourself. And looking at beautiful art, listening to beautiful music, right? Reading a story, memorizing a poem, or just reading a poem, getting out in nature. Those are all things that we can do for us that help us to feel better, be better. Okay, Connie, somebody asked, how long are you going to be there? Thank you, Jeanette. That was really beautiful. That was one of the questions you got. And you can respond in a chat if you want to. You don't have to. I feel bad. I don't want to mess up your. Okay, 1 week in Denmark, a couple weeks around the UK. Oh. I'm
Sorry, I
so
was trying to type it out in the background. I'm not fast enough.
No.
We're celebrating my husband's birthday and my son's 18-year-old birthday. So pretty big, once in a lifetime trip for us.
That is amazing. Oh, I love it. Soak it all up and then share with us when you get back all the goodness.
Okay. And now I can't figure out how to mute myself again.
You're
Sorry.
fine.
Oh,
I
here we
can,
go.
oh, you got it. I was gonna say, if anybody ever wants help, I can do it. So I just don't want to be like, oh, shush, and mute somebody. I don't want to do that. Okay, anybody else? Other thoughts? We're getting close to the end. And there is a Q&A today in Mothers of Influence. So if you ladies didn't see that, go check out the events in Mothers of Influence, because there are changes there. Some good and beautiful things that are being added.
Can you tell me what the topic of the Q&A is? Is it just kind of general?
It's open. Yep. Any of the Q&As we have in any of the platforms, come. Even if we say, that this is going to, here's one where you can come and talk about this, you can come and ask anything. And it's crazy. Somebody was laughing and commenting about the customer service because there'll be like 3 or 4 of us on there to answer questions. And it's just because we really like each other. We like to be together. So we'll all show up for half of us will show up for a Q&A. Yeah, Jeanette.
Sorry, I don't know if I can ask this here or not, but where do we find that Mothers of Influence community? Is that on Mighty Networks or on Well Educated Heart?
It is on Mighty Networks. It's on Mighty Networks, and it's lovely. And here's the thing. It's just a little bit different than the regular community in that you have to have completed Catch the Vision before joining. So if you have completed the Catch the Vision, which is that 17 hours of watching the different videos and reading those things that are there, then we would love to have you come and join us in the Mothers of Influence community, where we go deeper into all of those topics. And we're getting started on the Mothers University too. So if you go through Catch the Vision course and you get down to the last section, you're done.
I've done that, and I paid the money and I got that, and I go to a Mothers of Influence group in my community, which I love. I just didn't know where it was on here.
Oh, yes. So Mighty Networks. It is in the Mighty Networks. Yep. I'm sorry. But yes. So
thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I so often I would do this to my kids. They would ask one little question and I would tell them all this stuff. They're like, Mom, I just wanted to know. Oh, sorry. I haven't stopped doing that apparently. Nicole.
I just wanted to ask, like, people who are a part of Bellam at Home and the Mothers of Influence on the Mighty Networks and Biblio Guides, like, I feel really overwhelmed. I've explored all of those a little bit, but like the Mothers of Influence, I haven't used hardly at all, because just a couple little things. But all of the topics that are covered, there's the Wednesday thing, lunch thing that you have a special guest and stuff. It sounds so cool. I've listened to one. It's so cool, but I just don't know how to make time for all of it. Like, is there some magic tip that can help me figure out how to make time for all of it? Because I did write out something for Bellam at Home recently, like, okay, we're going to do this and this these days. But as far as like Biblio Guides, I have explored it a little bit, but again, I just feel overwhelmed. Maybe that's just me, but there's so much good content. I just don't know how to utilize it.
Okay, so my question in the chat is, did you not get the packet of magic dust? Because that's how you get it all done, is you use that.
Yes, I need that. Send it
if
to
you
me.
didn't get that, then Marley's gonna hop on and share with you some sage wisdom about how you get it all done.
I want to know, where do I write away for the magic dust? How do I get that? I hear you, Nicole, and I think you're not alone in what you're saying. And part of it is just the world we live in. We're going to be inundated with stuff. The first thing I would say is allow yourself to just be overwhelmed and to take things however you can take them. Do whatever just feels right to you. If you're asking me about these different communities, I would say this, that the Bellam community is a place for you to understand how to start implementing Well Educated Heart with your children and to take yourself along for that ride and begin to feel it. So it's a buffet. Think of it as Chuck-a-rama. And you know what? We have time to listen to the storytellers this week. And that's it. That's all we've got. But you're still going to get maybe I should say something better, like super vegan, healthy, something else buffet. It's not, it's way better than Chakarema, but you're going to get nourished from whatever you can pull out of that. Now, the Mothers of Influence community is a place to feed your heart, not in content, in connection. So what we're doing right here, this is Mothers of Influence, and this is here in the Belle community to help provide that pathway for mothers to see what that connection is like. This is a Mothers of Influence circle right here. It just doesn't have quite the same focus, because we hope that you'll be focusing on the Catch the Vision here. But we're not focused on content. We're not focused on, more things for you to do over there, as much as the shift now is, how can we help connect you with local people and with online people that can be your little circle of friends, and have this feel right here where you share, you help each other, focusing on the Mothers University and the Well-Educated Heart. I could talk for a long time. I'm sorry.
We love it. Marlene.
Thank you.
I could sit and listen to you talk all morning and I wouldn't get tired of it.
That's because Lori's my friend. She's the only one. She's just kind.
See, Lindsay Watkins raised her hand. I'm pretty sure we'd all sit and just listen. Thank you so much. So does that help a little bit, Nicole?
Yeah, I think it does. I've been doing Well-Educated Heart for quite a while, but I just kind of felt like, oh, I just want to try Belle at Home this year, even though I called our morning thing our gathering time, and I have 4 kids, and it was just my 9-year-old who still wanted to do it. Everybody else was like, can we stop doing gathering? And I'm like, how sad. I guess I need to switch it up somehow. And so we're doing Belle at Home, and trying to find time to get everybody gathered to do it. And if I can't get them all gathered, I'm going to just grab one of them and bring them over. But yeah, just, I think for me, I need to think of it right as a buffet, and just think of it like, I don't have to do it all. I just want to try to make time for it because it's important. And, there's a lot of unimportant things that are trying to get into my schedule. And I just have to try to keep my focus, which was my other question earlier. So just working on some things.
Even if you take some of it off of you. Okay, I've learned the art of strewing. Have you guys heard of that? Where you just take the information, take some books related to the topic, and just lay them on the table, lay them on the floor, do something, and your kids will gravitate toward it and pick it up. And because my kids just started doing that, they're like, do you want to know what I learned? And I'm like, oh, good. I didn't have to teach you that. I didn't have to sit and read that to you, but they are gleaning so much from it just because it's available. So just strew it about. I wanted more board games or card games. And so I literally stuck a pack of cards in the middle of my table and just left it there. And we've played so many card games just because it was in their line of sight. So if you're just putting it in their line of sight, they're going to get it. They're going to be drawn to it anyway. So take some of it off of you, put it on them, and then the conversation that comes out of it will be so much richer because they found it themselves.
Thank you. Good tips.
I love that. That's so good. It's just like when I had a book that I wanted my kids to read and I knew it would be good for them. I just felt like, oh, this is a book for so-and-so, like an inspiration kind of thing. I would share that with them and they'd go, I think, wait, but you're supposed to read this book. I know this is the book for you. But then I would read, the first little bit, and I just sit down, start reading it out loud, and just say, I really, something, and then set it down and then go off and do something. And later, that child would have that book and they'd be going through and reading it. So yes, strewing. I love that. Just strew it about, just put it out there for them to find. So much of our problems, whatever, come up because we're trying to orchestrate too much of it. And honestly, if we could get the confidence to let go more, and just do the learning and the nurturing of our own hearts, I've watched mamas do that and I've seen the results, and it's pretty incredible. It doesn't mean your days are perfect. It doesn't mean your kids just are wonderfully behaved and they cannot wait to learn the next thing that you have to share with them. It's just that it changes the atmosphere in your home, changes your heart, it changes how you respond to things, and it changes the feeling in your home. And learning starts to happen. It's just this kind of magical thing that happens. That's why I talk about magic dust. It just starts to happen and you see the results. You have to have eyes to see and a heart to feel those differences, but you begin to see the fruit of those efforts. Yeah, Sienna.
Yeah. So Nicole, I understand you all too well. But here's something that I did this year. I've been doing a couple of years is I write down I call it my Liahona. What do I want to focus on for this year? And so I had this huge list written down and I showed my husband and he said, okay, you pick 2 of those things that are the things that you would want to do. And then all the rest, they're just toppings on the pizza. They're not essential. I'm like, okay. So I look at my list. I'm like, only 2. Which 2? Which 2? And you know, I love them all. That's why I wrote them down, because I want to do them all. Like Bella at Home has some really cool things, and I just want to do them all, and along with everything else. But not that it happens every day, but a lot of times I'll say, hey, I got 1 or 2 of those things done for today, and there you go. And if I filled my heart just a little bit, then there you go. But I don't know, so many thoughts as far as focusing goes. For me, I'm really just striving to focus on what's most important. And for me, it's to feel that God loves me. And that's what I try to focus on. And really everything else, they're just like events. And if I could just stay like in the eye of the storm, then I'm at peace. And when I get there, then I just am grateful. Say, oh, wow, I feel peaceful. And it doesn't matter what's going on around me. But this doesn't always happen because I'm actually human. But anyway.
Thanks, Sienna.
That's lovely. Just that idea of picking 2 things. And aren't husbands good for things like that? Simplifying. Let's just simplify this down to 2 things. But that's that idea of layering, you know, just putting in those layers, coming back around, knowing it's still going to be there, and you can add next time. You can add some more next time. It's just hard because we do want to do it all. Self-control. Okay, we are at the end. Lenny, last minute thought, any last minute thing you just think, oh, I was going to share this. I didn't do it. Now is the time. Everyone's just quietly thinking about all these lovely things that have been said. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing the thoughts that you've shared, those things that were on your heart, and then the lovely responses to questions and thoughts and concerns of other mamas. Such a good thing to come together, hear each other's thoughts, share in those lovely things, and be able to also bring problems, things that are, you know, are a concern for you and your family, and bring them here and talk about them with other friends. So I'm glad you were here. I hope you'll come back. Also, if you're in either one of the communities, on the page for, you know, in the Mom's Corner or on the Mother Matters page, there is a place for either feed or chat, and I can't remember, but where you can chat with the other mamas that are here and share things. So back and forth. So that's a great resource too. Also note, come to the Q&As. If you have any questions about getting around either of the communities, just drop into a Q&A, because most of the time Marley is there and Marley will screen share and walk you through different parts. If you haven't been able to find something, if you're not quite sure how to utilize something, she can walk you through there. And please, if you haven't done the orientations, do the orientations. It's not like in most places where it's just all this basic stuff that of course you knew. Just being alive, you already know that stuff, and it wasn't necessary, it wasn't worth your time. That's not how these orientations are. They are very, very helpful. So go back. Yes, they're pretty short too, right? We try to make it doable, something that a mom, busy mom, could do. So okay, thank you so much for being here. If anybody has something that they need to share, or a question that they didn't want to ask on the recording, then you're welcome to stay and ask that. Thanks, everybody. Have a really good, long, nice, long weekend. Enjoy.